The stars looked calm from the bridge of the vigilant dawn. Calm, silent, and almost peaceful. But Commander Leora Hale knew better. Behind that calm sky, death was waiting. The enemy fleet had already crossed the defense line. Thousands of Dominion warships were moving closer, like a black wave swallowing everything in their path. Leora stood at the center of the bridge. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder and there were dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept in 3 days. But she didn't have time to sleep. No one did. Around her, the crew worked in silence. Their faces were pale and tired, but their hands moved fast. Every console showed red warnings. Shields failing, power low, weapons overheating. The human fleet was down to only 7 ships, 7 ships against thousands. They were standing at the last gate to Earth. If they failed, humanity was finished. "Commander," said Captain Yao quietly from the comm station. His voice was steady even though his hands were shaking. "Dominion ships entering firing range." Leora exhaled slowly. She knew this moment would come. "Raise shields," she ordered. "Shields at 32%, replied Lieutenant Armin. His voice cracked a little. "Then 32% will have to do," Leora said. Through the massive viewing screen, the enemy fleet appeared. Long black ships, sharp and cold like knives. The Dominion didn't care about beauty. Their ships were made only to destroy. "Targeting systems locked," said Yao. "Fire at will," Leora replied. The vigilant dawn shuddered as its rail cannons fired. Streams of light shot into the dark space, hitting the enemy's first line. A few Dominion ships exploded, but the wave kept moving. For every ship they destroyed, 10 more were waiting behind. Inside the bridge, alarms screamed. Energy levels were dropping. One of the smaller Terran ships, the Silver Wind, took a direct hit. On the screen, it burst into flames and vanished in seconds. Lieutenant Armin whispered something under his breath. Leora heard it anyway. That was my brother's ship. She wanted to say something, anything, but words felt empty here. All she could offer him was a nod. He straightened his shoulders and returned to work. No tears, no breakdown, just more fighting. This was what it meant to be human now. They didn't have the most powerful ships. They didn't have the strongest army. But they had something the Dominion never understood. They didn't give up. Hours passed like minutes. The battle grew worse. Every blast from the enemy shook the ship like a hammer against metal. Sparks flew from the consoles. Smoke filled the air. The medic team rushed through the corridors carrying wounded crew. "Main shields down to 15%, Armin shouted. "Reroute power from the engines," Leora said. "That'll slow us down," Yao warned. Leora's voice was calm. "We're not running. We're holding." That was their mission. Hold the line. Every hour they survived was another hour for Earth to prepare. Another hour for evacuation ships to escape. Leora touched the console near her. It was warm, too warm. The ship was burning itself alive just to keep fighting. Yao moved closer. His face was covered in ash and sweat, but his eyes were steady. He leaned in and whispered, "Just a little more, Commander." Those words hit her like a spark in the dark. She had heard them so many times before, in training and other battles, even in the dark tunnels of the war's first year. Just a little more. It was what soldiers said when they were tired but refused to stop. The Dominion's voice came through the comm line, cold and sharp. "Humans, you are surrounded. Surrender and your suffering will end. Your resistance is meaningless." Leora stared at the speaker without moving. Yao grinned, even with blood on his lips. "They've been saying the same thing for 100 years, Leora replied over the comm in a calm voice. "Then maybe it's time someone taught you what meaningless really looks like." The enemy laughed, a deep metallic sound. "The line went dead, Commander," Armin said. "If they keep firing like this, we won't last another hour." She knew he wasn't wrong. Their shields would fail soon. The engines were overheating. Weapons were burning out, but Earth was counting on them. She couldn't say yes to dying, not yet. She straightened up. "Prepare the Atlas key." The bridge went silent. Even the alarms seemed quieter for a second. Everyone turned to her. "Commander," Yao said softly. "That's forbidden." Leora met his eyes. "So is extinction. Project Atlas. It wasn't a bomb or a superweapon. It was something worse, something dangerous even to humans. A neural network that could link thousands of human minds into one. It was created in the war's darkest year, when humanity thought it would die. They had sworn never to use it unless there was no other way, and now there was no other way. Bring the key to the command center, she ordered. Armin ran to the lower deck. Yao didn't argue. He just nodded, the way soldiers do when they know their choices are gone. Leora stood alone at the front window for a moment. She watched the stars. She remembered being a child, looking up at the night sky from Earth. Back then, the stars were something beautiful. She never imagined they'd become a battlefield. The Dominion pushed closer. Their dreadnoughts formed a ring around the human fleet. Blasts of energy hammered against their ships. One by one, Terran vessels fell. Stormcaller is gone, someone yelled. The Iron Reef is burning. The bridge lights flickered. Armin returned holding a small black case. Inside was a glowing crystal sphere, the Atlas key. It pulsed with a faint light like a heartbeat. Leora placed her hand on it. It felt cold at first, then warm, then almost alive. She felt a strange hum in the air like thousands of whispers. Are you sure? Yao asked. No, Leora answered honestly. But I'm sure of what happens if we don't. He gave a tired smile. Then let's make history. Leora pressed her palm to the key. A sharp pain shot through her head. Then everything blurred. The ship around her disappeared. For a heartbeat, she felt nothing, no sound, no sight, just silence, and then she felt everyone. Billions of humans, soldiers on the ground, pilots in their cockpits, civilians hiding under ruined cities. She felt their fear, their anger, their hope. All of it flowed into her like a river of fire. She wasn't just Leora Hale anymore. She was part of something bigger. Back on the bridge, Yao saw her eyes glow faint blue. The Atlas link had begun. Consoles lit up one by one. The ship's damage system started to respond faster, stronger. Weapons powered up again. The crew, though exhausted, moved with sudden precision. Commander, Armin whispered. Leora's voice echoed through the speakers. It wasn't just her, it carried 1,000 voices. Hold the line. Outside, Dominion ships opened fire again. But this time, the vigilant dawn answered like a beast waking up. Railguns fired in perfect rhythm. Lasers hit weak points with deadly accuracy. The humans weren't faster. They weren't stronger. But they were together. Still, the enemy was overwhelming. For every ship they struck down, 10 more pressed in. The human fleet was like a small flame in a storm. Leora felt the pressure building inside her head. Every human connected to the link pushed their emotions, their fear, their anger into her. Her mind was a storm. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of billions. Her knees shook. Her breath came short. But she didn't stop. Yao stepped beside her. He didn't need to say much. He just put his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Just a little more." Something inside her cracked at those words. They were so simple, but they carried everything. Years of war, pain, and unbroken spirit. The Dominion fleet drew closer, their dreadnoughts ready to finish the job. Leora could see them now through the smoke-stained window. They looked endless, her vision blurred. Every heartbeat was like thunder in her skull. The Atlas key pulsed harder. I can't hold this forever, she thought. But Earth was behind her. Billions of lives, and one phrase kept echoing in her head. The same one Yao whispered, "Just a little more." She screamed, but no sound came out. Only light. The ship shook again. More human vessels exploded in the distance. The vigilant dawn stood alone now. But its guns were still firing. Its crew was still standing. Its commander was still breathing. The Dominion sent another message. You are out of time, humans. Surrender and end this pointless suffering. Leora raised her head slowly. Her voice went through every speaker on every ship. We don't surrender. We endure. Far away on Earth, civilians listened to the battle feed. They could hear her voice. And for a moment, the world fell silent. Children in underground shelters looked up. Old veterans clenched their fists. Scientists stopped their work and listened. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood what those words meant. Humanity will not kneel. On the bridge of the vigilant dawn, smoke filled the air. Systems were failing. Alarms screamed, but the light from the Atlas key grew brighter and brighter. Leora's hands shook. Her head pounded like a war drum, but she refused to fall. Commander, Yao said again, voice soft but unbroken. Just a little more. She looked at him. At the crew. At the stars, and she made her choice. She pressed her hand harder on the Atlas key. The stars outside began to change. The bridge of the vigilant dawn was half in darkness now. Smoke filled the air. Alarms flashed red on every console. The smell of burned wires and hot metal spread through the room like a warning. Outside, the enemy fleet surrounded them like a cage of black steel. Commander Leora Hale stood in the center, her hand still pressed to the Atlas key. The glowing sphere pulsed faster and brighter, its light wrapping around her like a second skin. She could feel it pushing deeper into her mind. She was no longer alone. She could feel millions of minds, soldiers, pilots, engineers, civilians, all connected through the Atlas network. She could feel their fear, their hope, their pain. Every heartbeat was shared. Every scream echoed in her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt what it meant to carry the weight of an entire species. "Commander," Captain Yao's voice pulled her back to the bridge. "They're charging their main cannons again. A full wave." Leora's vision blurred for a second, but she forced her eyes open. Through the window, she saw the massive Dominion dreadnoughts, larger than mountains, moving like silent monsters. A dozen cannons began to glow blue, ready to fire. "Shields at 9%, Lieutenant Armin shouted. His voice was shaking. "One more direct hit and we're finished." Leora's fingers tightened on the key. "We're not finished," she said softly. The Dominion voice came through the comm again, cold, confident. "Human fleet, we have given you mercy. This is your final chance. Surrender." Leora laughed quietly, not because it was funny, but because she'd heard that voice too many times. "Mercy," she whispered. "They don't even know what that word means." Yao stepped closer. His uniform was burned at the sleeve. There was blood on his forehead, but his eyes were calm. "We don't have much left," he said quietly. Leora turned her head. Around her, the crew was still working. None of them had stopped, even when the consoles sparked. Even when their hands bled. No one said they wanted to run. No one said they wanted to give up. And deep in the Atlas network, she felt billions of humans standing with them. Some were crying, some were screaming, but no one turned away. The world behind her was still fighting. She whispered to herself, "Just a little more." The Dominion dreadnoughts fired. The entire ship shook like it was struck by a hammer the size of a mountain. Lights exploded. Panels burst. Several crew members fell to the floor. The shield screamed, then went silent. "Shields down," Armin shouted. Leora was thrown against the console but kept her hand on the key. Pain shot up her arm, but she didn't care. She pushed her mind deeper into the Atlas network. And then something changed. The Atlas link flared. The glow from the sphere turned white. Her heartbeat exploded in her chest. For a second, she couldn't breathe. The weight of billions slammed into her like a wave of fire. She saw faces flash through her mind. Soldiers on ruined worlds, children in underground shelters, engineers in broken space stations, pilots in their cockpits, all of them whispering the same words. Just a little more. It was like a chant, a storm. She felt herself tearing at the edges. Her body couldn't hold this power. Her mind trembled like glass under pressure. Yao saw her shaking. He rushed forward and grabbed her shoulder. "Leora, stop. It'll kill you." She smiled at him weakly. "Then it will kill me standing." Outside, something strange happened. The vigilant dawn, which should have been dead, started to move. Slowly at first, then faster. Its damaged guns realigned. Its broken armor glowed faintly as the remaining energy surged into it. Then, like sparks in the dark, more human ships began to flicker on the sensors. They were wrecks, dying hulks, but through the Atlas link they moved again. The crews that were still alive refused to let their ships drift. The Dominion commander barked orders in their own harsh language. They didn't understand what they were seeing. No race had ever done this before. No army kept fighting after losing everything, but humans did. "Fire!" Leora commanded. Every gun on the vigilant dawn roared at once. The shots were too many, too fast, too precise. Dominion ships fell back as their front line shattered. It wasn't enough to win the war, but it was enough to make the enemy feel something they had never felt before. Fear. But the cost was heavy. The Atlas link demanded more. More strength, more focus, more of her. Leora's breath came fast and shallow. Her hands shook. Blood dripped from her nose. But she didn't pull away from the key. Armin looked at her in fear. "Commander, you're going to—" She cut him off with a hoarse whisper. "I know." The ship shook again as the enemy regrouped. More dreadnoughts closed in. She felt the walls inside her head start to crack. She wasn't sure how long she could keep fighting before the Atlas link tore her apart. Then something unexpected happened. A soft voice joined the storm in her mind. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't a pilot. It was a little girl. "Don't stop," the girl whispered. "We're here," then a man's voice joined. Then another, and another. All over the world, people connected to Atlas not just with fear, but with hope. Leora felt it flooding into her chest like sunlight breaking through clouds. She wasn't alone. She never had been. "Commander," Yao said softly. "They're coming again." On the screen, Dominion dreadnoughts charged their cannons. Blue light filled the void. The next blast would destroy everything. Leora turned to her crew. They were bruised, burned, and shaking. But no one looked away. She raised her hand. "If this is where we stand, then we stand together." The bridge erupted in a roar. No speech, no fancy words, just raw human will. Yao leaned close to her again and whispered in her ear. His voice was quiet but powerful. "Just a little more." She closed her eyes and let go of the wall inside her mind. The Atlas link exploded. White light burst from the sphere like a star. The shockwave spread through the battlefield, not a weapon of destruction but of connection. Human minds merged deeper, stronger, like steel being forged in fire. Every remaining ship in the Terran fleet moved at the same moment, like one body. Their weapons fired in perfect rhythm. Every shot hit a weak point. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion line bent. The alien commander shouted in panic. Their perfect formation broke. They had fought against strong armies before, but they had never fought against a united species. Leora felt like her head was burning. She couldn't feel her own heartbeat anymore. She felt everyone's heartbeat. She saw a pilot on Mars turning her ship, a soldier on Luna aiming his cannon, a child on Earth whispering, "Don't give up." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her voice was weak, but it carried across the network. "We are still here." The crew felt it too. Their fear turned into fire. They worked faster, fought harder. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about showing the galaxy what it meant to be human. The Dominion dreadnoughts fired their cannons. Blue beams of energy rushed toward the vigilant dawn. But before the blasts could hit, something unexpected happened. A wall of light appeared around the human fleet. Not a shield made of machines, but a field of energy shaped by the Atlas link. It was the combined will of billions of human minds. The enemy fire hit the wall and scattered. Yao stared in shock. What is this?" Leora opened her eyes. They glowed bright blue. "It's us," she whispered. "All of us." The battle turned. Human ships that should have fallen were still standing. The Dominion's perfect war machine was now facing something they couldn't measure or calculate. They tried to press forward, but the human fleet didn't move back an inch. For every ship the Dominion destroyed, the humans struck back with 10 times the fury. For every soldier they lost, 1,000 voices screamed through the Atlas link. "Just a little more." Leora felt her body weakening. Her vision faded around the edges. She had given everything she had, but the fire inside her didn't go out. Yao grabbed her arm as she swayed. "Leora!" She forced a small smile. "We're not broken yet," Armin shouted from his console. "Commander, their second line is collapsing. We're actually pushing them back." For a brief second, the bridge filled with something no one had felt in a long time. Hope. But hope wasn't free. The Atlas link was pulling her apart. Her mind was stretched so thin she could feel the edges starting to tear. Every second felt like a lifetime. She whispered almost to herself. I can't hold it much longer." Yao pressed his forehead to hers, their helmets gone, their skin warm and real. His voice was quiet. "Then don't hold it alone." He placed his hand on the Atlas key. The sphere pulsed him, and then his mind joined hers. One more voice. One more heartbeat, and then more hands followed. Armin, the engineers, the crew. One by one, they added their strength to hers. The Atlas link wasn't crushing her anymore. It was lifting her. Together, they pushed back. Dominion ships fell apart under the weight of something no weapon could match. Unity. The enemy commander screamed orders, but panic had already taken root. Their fleet, so sure of victory, was breaking. Leora stood tall. Her body was shaking, her face pale, but her voice was steady. "We do not kneel." The Dominion fired again. Humanity roared louder. The light of the Atlas key filled the entire bridge now. The ship felt alive. The crew felt like part of one soul. Leora's heart pounded. She was no longer afraid of breaking. She had already broken. And in that brokenness, something stronger was born. A storm. A united species. Humanity. Outside, the stars burned bright. Dominion ships fell back. For the first time, their unstoppable advance had been stopped. The vigilant dawn, cracked and bleeding energy, floated in the center of. The battlefield hung silent for a few seconds. The Black Dominion dreadnoughts, once moving like a storm, now floated with uncertainty. In the center of the field, the human flagship Vigilant Dawn glowed faintly, cracked, burning, but still alive. Commander Leora Hale stood at the bridge, her hand on the Atlas key. Her uniform was torn, blood stained her collar, and her breathing came in short gasps. But her eyes burned bright blue. She could still feel billions of minds inside her. Pilots, soldiers, civilians, engineers, farmers, children, old veterans. They were all connected through the Atlas link. She was one heartbeat among billions. The Dominion expected her to fall. They expected humanity to collapse. But humanity didn't fall. Humanity rose, Commander. Captain Yao whispered, his voice rough from smoke. Their second line is pulling back. They're scared. The word felt strange. The Dominion had never known fear before. They had crushed entire empires without blinking. But now, something had changed. Lieutenant Armin shouted from his console. 3 of their dreadnoughts have broken formation. They're not attacking? Yao asked. No, Armin said, disbelief on his face. They're retreating. Leora stared out of the window. The massive black ships, which had once felt unstoppable, were slowly backing away. They had power, they had numbers, but they had lost their certainty. She exhaled. Good, she whispered. Let them see what fear feels like. But the battle was far from over. The Dominion still had hundreds of warships, and humans had only a few damaged ones. Leora knew it. Yao knew it. Everyone did. But something else filled the bridge now, something that hadn't been there before. Hope. Commander, Armin said, his voice softer now. The Atlas field is still active, but if we keep pushing this hard, it will break your body. Leora gave a small smile. I already broke, Armin. Yao turned toward her. His hands were still on the Atlas key beside hers. Then let's finish this together, she nodded. The glow of the sphere pulsed again, brighter than before. The connection deepened. The walls between billions of human minds melted away. Every soldier on every ship felt Leora's heartbeat. Every pilot could feel the breath of the person fighting next to them. They weren't a scattered fleet anymore. They were one. The Dominion commander finally spoke through the comm. His voice, usually sharp and cruel, now carried a thin edge of something else. Unease. Humans, the alien voice hissed. You think this changes anything? You are ants. We are the storm. We will crush you, Leora's reply was calm, almost quiet. No, you are the storm. But we are the ground you're trying to destroy. And the ground doesn't run. For the first time in the war, the Dominion commander did not answer right away. Outside, the last Terran ships formed a line beside the Vigilant Dawn. Many were half broken, some missing engines, others floating with only emergency power, but none of them turned away. Even civilian ships on the edges of the system powered up their signal boosters, joining the Atlas network. It wasn't just a fleet anymore. It was an entire species standing up. Yao leaned closer. Orders? Leora looked around the bridge. At her crew, exhausted but unbroken. At the stars outside. At the endless enemy waiting to destroy them. Attack, she said, but not alone. The Atlas key flared white. The ships moved together. Fast, sharp, perfect. Their guns fired as if controlled by one mind. Their formations shifted like the beating of a heart. The Dominion ships responded with fire, their cannons lighting the void with blue beams. But this time, humanity met them head-on. The Atlas field bent under the enemy fire but didn't break. The will of billions of humans held it together. The first line of Dominion ships exploded under the coordinated assault. One after another, their formations cracked. Their perfect Cold War machine was facing something it could not calculate, a united will. Leora felt the pain like burning metal in her skull. Every time a human ship was hit, she felt it in her bones. Every scream echoed in her chest. Every breath was a storm. She wasn't a commander anymore. She was a bridge. A living conduit of human will. She wanted to fall. She wanted to rest, but she couldn't. Yao's voice came through the noise, quiet but solid. Leora, just a little more. The words wrapped around her like armor. She pushed harder. The Dominion tried to counterattack. Their dreadnoughts released a wave of fighters, small black ships moving fast as blades. They swarmed the human fleet like locusts. For any other army, it would have been the end. But humanity wasn't fighting like an army anymore. They were fighting like one body. The Atlas network guided their fire. Every fighter was met with a countershot. Every gap was filled by another ship. Leora felt the pilots in their cockpits. She felt their sweat, their fear, their burning determination. She whispered to them, even though they couldn't hear her voice directly, "Hold the line." And they did. The Dominion dreadnoughts moved forward again. But now their fire was less certain, their formation less perfect. Their movement slower, the fear was spreading. The human fleet pushed deeper, cutting through the Dominion line like a blade. Explosions lit up the void like silent fireworks. Armin shouted through the smoke. "2 dreadnoughts down! Keep going," Leora commanded. Her voice was raw but strong. The alien commander roared through the comm. "You are nothing. You are meat and fire. You cannot win." Leora stood straight, blood dripping from the corner of her mouth, and whispered back, "Watch us." Then came the turning point. The Dominion brought out their flagship, a monster twice the size of the Vigilant Dawn, armed with enough firepower to shatter a moon. Its cannons burned blue. Its engines glowed like suns. Armin's voice cracked. "That thing could destroy us in one shot." Yao gritted his teeth. "Then we hit first." Leora closed her eyes. She reached deeper into the Atlas network, deeper than she ever had before. She felt every heartbeat, every cry, every whisper of just a little more. Her voice echoed through billions of minds. "We finish this together." The human fleet turned toward the Dominion flagship. Broken ships, damaged engines, burned armor. But no one turned back. The Dominion fired first. A massive blue beam ripped through space. But the Atlas shield rose like a wall of light. The beam hit, and for a second it looked like the shield would collapse. Leora felt her chest tighten. She felt every human pushing, screaming, refusing, and the shield held. "Now!" she shouted. Every gun on every Terran ship fired at once. The void became white with fire. Missiles, railguns, plasma shots. Everything slammed into the Dominion flagship. Its shields flared, then cracked. The enemy commander screamed orders. But humanity didn't stop. They hit it again, and again. And again, Yo whispered beside her, "Just a little more." The Atlas key burned hot against her skin. Her vision turned white. Then the Dominion flagship exploded. The shockwave tore through the battlefield. The Dominion fleet froze. The flagship, the symbol of their unstoppable power, was gone. Leora opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was weak, but it carried across the Atlas network. "They can be beaten." Billions of humans screamed together. Not in fear. In defiance, the Dominion ships began to retreat. Their perfect war machine cracked. Their commander was gone. Their morale was broken. The human fleet, small and bleeding, stood tall in the center of the stars. Yao let out a shaky laugh. "They're running." Armin stared at the screen. We did it," Leora didn't answer. Her knees gave out, and Yao caught her before she fell. Her body was weak. Her head pounded like thunder, but she was smiling. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of broken systems. The stars outside were still burning, but the darkness felt different now. Leora sat on the floor, leaning against the console. The Atlas key was still glowing softly, like a heartbeat. She whispered, "We're still here." Yao knelt beside her. "Yeah," he said. "We are." All across Earth, the signal reached every city, every shelter, every station. People who had lived in fear for years stepped outside. They looked up at the night sky, not with dread but with pride. They didn't win because they were stronger. They won because they refused to kneel. A broadcast went through every channel. Yao's voice, calm but strong, spoke to the entire species. "Today, humanity faced the storm, and we did not fall. Remember this day, because this is the day the galaxy learned who we are." Cheers erupted across the world. Children cried. Soldiers hugged each other. Old men whispered the same words, "Just a little more." Later in the quiet after the storm, Leora sat alone in the observation deck. The stars looked calm again. But they didn't feel the same. They were no longer silent enemies. They were waiting. She knew this wasn't the end. The Dominion would return. Others would rise. But now humanity had shown the galaxy what happens when they are pushed to the edge. She touched the atlas key gently. It was warm now. A part of her. A part of them all. Yao walked up behind her. You should rest, he said. She shook her head. Later. I just want to look at the stars a little more. For a moment they stood there in silence. The stars, the endless dark, the broken ships. It was all real. But for the first time in a long time it didn't feel hopeless. Leora whispered, They thought they could break us. Yao smiled. They didn't know who they were dealing with. She turned to him and gave a tired smile. No one breaks humanity. We break the dark.